trod a man's tracks. You are the limit. And you never before failed me. You blame, degenerate pup, you!" The Harvester paused for breath, and the dog subsided to a pitiful whimper. He was eager to return to the man who had struck him the first blow his pampered body ever had received, but he could not understand a kick and harsh words for him, so he lay quivering with anxiety and fear. "You howling, whimpering idiot!" exclaimed the Harvester. "Choose a day like this to spoil? Air to intoxicate a mummy, roots swelling, buds bursting, harvest close, and you'd call me off and put me at work like that, would you? If I ever had supposed you'd lost all your senses, I never would have asked you. 6 years you have decided my fate, when the first bluebird came, and you've been true blue every time. If I ever trust you again, but the mischief is done now. Have you forgotten that your name means to protect? Don't you remember it is because of that? It is your name, protect. I'd have trusted you with my life, Belle. You gave it to me the time you pointed that rattler within 6 inches of my fingers in the bloodroot bed. You saw the falling limb in time to warn me. You always know where the quicksands lie. But you are protecting me now like sin, ain't you? Bring a girl here to spoil both our lives? Not if I know myself. Protect." The man arose and going inside the cabin closed the door. After that the dog lay in abject misery so deep that 2 big tears squeezed from his eyes and rolled down his face. To be shut out was worse than the blow. He did not take the trouble to arise from the wet leaves covering the cold earth, but closing his eyes, went to sleep. The man leaned against the door and ran his fingers through his hair as he anathematized the dog. Slowly his eyes traveled around the room. He saw his tumbled bed by the open window facing the lake, the small table with his writing material, the crude rack on the wall, loaded with medical works, botanies, drug encyclopedias, the books of the few authors who interested him, and the bare, muck-tracked floor. He went to the kitchen, where he built a fire in the cook stove, and to the smoke house, from which he returned with a slice of ham and some eggs. He set some potatoes boiling, and took bread, butter, and milk from the pantry. Then he laid a small notebook on the table before him, and studied the transactions of the day. 10 pounds of wild cherry bark at 6 cents, 60 cents. 5 pounds of wahoo root bark at 25 cents, $1.25. 20 pounds of witch hazel bark, 5 cents, $1. 5 pounds of blue flag root, 12 cents, 60 cents. 10 pounds of snake root at 18 cents, $1.80. 10 pounds of bloodroot at 12 cents, $1.20. 15 pounds of horehound at 10 cents, $1.50. Total $7.95. "Not so bad," he muttered, bending over the figures. "I wonder if any of my neighbours who harvest the fields average as well at this season. I'll wager they don't. That's pretty fair. Some days I don't make it, and then when a consignment of seeds go or ginseng is wanted, the cash comes in right properly. I could waste half of it on a girl and yet save money. But where is the woman who would be content with half? She'd want all and fret because there wasn't more. Blame that dog." He put the book in his pocket, prepared and ate his supper, heaped a plate generously, placed it on the floor beneath the table, and set away the food that remained. "Not that you deserve it," he said to space. "You get this in honor of your distinguished name and the faithfulness with which you formerly have lived up to its import. If you hadn't been a dog with more sense than some men, I wouldn't take your going back on me now so hard. One would think an animal of your intelligence might realize that you would get as much of a dose as I. Would she permit you to eat from a plate on the kitchen floor? Not on your life, Belshazzar. Frozen scraps around the door for you. Would she allow you to sleep across the foot of the bed? Ho, ho, ho! Would she have you tracking on her floor? It would be the barn, and growling you didn't do at that. If I'd serve you right, I'd give you a dose and allow you to see how you like it. But it's cutting off my nose to spite my face, as the old adage goes, for whatever she did to a dog, she'd probably do worse to a man. I think not." He entered the front room and stood before a long shelf on which were arranged an array of partially completed candlesticks carved from wood. There were black and white walnut, red, white, and golden oak, cherry, and curly maple, all in original designs. Some of them were oddities, others were failures, but most of them were unusually successful. He selected one of black walnut, carved until the outline of his pattern was barely distinguishable. He was imitating the trunk of a tree with the bark on, the spreading fern-covered roots widening from the base from which a vine sprang. Near the top was the crude outline of a big night moth climbing toward the light. He stood turning this stick with loving hands and holding it from him for inspection. "I am going to master you," he exulted. "Your lines are right. The design balances and it's graceful. If I have any trouble, it will be with the moth, and I think I can manage. I've got to decide whether to use Cricopia or Polyphemus before long. Really, on a walnut and in the woods it should be a Luna, according to the eternal fitness of things. But I'm afraid of the trailers. They turn over and half curl, and I believe I had better not tackle them for a start. I'll use the easiest to begin on, and if I succeed, I'll duplicate the pattern and try a Luna then. The beauties!" The Harvester selected a knife from the box and began carving the stick slowly and carefully. His brain was busy, for presently he glanced at the floor. "She'd object to that," he said emphatically. "A man could no more sit and work where he pleased than he could fly. At least I know mother never would have it, and she was no nagger either. What a mother she was! If one only could stop the lonely feeling that will creep in, and the aching hunger born with the body, for a mate. If a fellow only could stop it with a woman like mother. How she revelled in sunshine and beauty, how she loved earth and air, how she went straight to the marrow of the finest line in the best book I could bring from the library. How clean and true she was, and how unyielding. I can hear her now, holding me with her last breath to my promise. If I could marry a girl like mother, great Caesar, you'd see me buying an automobile to make the run to the county clerk. Wouldn't that be great? Think of coming in from a long, difficult day to find a hot supper, and a girl, such as she must have been, waiting for me. Bel, if I thought there was a woman similar to her in all the world, and I had even the ghost of a chance to win her, I'd call you in and forgive you. But I know the girls of to-day. I pass them on the roads, on the streets, see them in the cafes, stores, and at the library. Why, even the nurses at the hospital, for all the gravity of their positions, are a giggling, silly lot. And they never know that the only time they look and act presentably to me is when they stop their chatter, put on their uniforms, and go to work. Some of them are pretty then. There's a little blue-eyed one, but all she needs is feathers to make her a ha-ha bird. Drat that dog! The Harvester took the candlestick and the box of knives, opened the door, and returned to the stoop. Belshazzar arose, pleading in his eyes, and cautiously advanced a few steps. The man bent over his work and paid not the slightest heed, so the discouraged dog sank to earth and fixedly watched the unresponsive master. The carving of the candlestick went on steadily. Occasionally the Harvester lifted his head and repeatedly sucked his lungs full of air. Sometimes for an instant he scanned the surface of the lake for signs of breaking fish or splash of migrant water bird.